All righty, welcome everybody to the 20th Showrunner Huddle, which is incredible. Very excited to be here. I'm Jared Morris, of course. You know Johnny Nastor. Let's dive into this, Johnny. But first, how are you? How's life on this beautiful Thursday?
Life's good. No complaints at all. Nope. Been working on getting the Hack the Entrepreneur top 10 out the door. I was approved last night by iTunes.
Nice.
Which is cool. I got to use the new Podcast Connect. And what else? Yeah, so I'm putting up the page. The page is almost done. Actually, I'm on 8 of 10 right now, using the new visual page builder in Rainmaker and loving it.
Very nice.
Which is really cool. And so I've been enjoying that.
Will you kind of give a brief recap of the strategy behind the Hack the Entrepreneur top 10 and what your goal is with it?
Yeah, so the goal is to give people a starting point. So I'm at episode 225 or so. So lots of people, well, I'm not going to say lots, but people every single day discover my show for the first time, and they listen to an episode, possibly one of the latest episodes or the last week or two. That seems to be where people really start. They kind of look at the last few and pick one, and then they end up at my site, and it's like, whoa, what do I do now? I see all the recent ones, but they'll never find Chris Brogan, the first episode. They'll never, you know what I mean? They'll never find those episodes. So I went through and I chose a top 10, and it's going to be on a completely separate page. It's going to be highlighted in the sidebar and highlighted in the navigation menu, kind of like a start here point. And it's a weird algorithm I made up of like the actual most popular, most downloaded episodes, the 5 of those, and then 5 that I think really round out sort of the experience of Hack the Entrepreneur, and will give people, they're either going to really be into the show at that point and into me, or else they're going to be kind of just like it's not for them, which is totally fine too. But it's really, to me, it's the distillation of the essence of it. And so I got a sponsor for it. I got an exclusive sponsor who paid me well I pulled out the ads from the original episodes, and we put in a new ad spot for each 10 and new artwork. And I'm submitting it to iTunes as a completely separate feed and podcast to obviously take advantage of new and noteworthy, go wide, get more exposure, hopefully. I switched out, because it's not on the Rainmaker network, this one, I took out the station ID and I just made a new station ID just saying, this is the top 10 from Hack the Entrepreneur. To find all the shows, go to hacktheentrepreneur.com. It's really a promotion vehicle, obviously, for my show through New and Noteworthy and iTunes, as well as a place for people who already are into the show or just discovered it, to kind of figure out where they kind of, if they're into the show and want to kind of dive deeper. So it's kind of multi-purposed. And so now I'm playing with it. I'll almost be done. But it went live yesterday. And so there's 3 episodes, of course, like totally recommend to go live with. And now I'm just kind of letting it sit. And Monday morning at 3:30 a.m., an episode comes out. Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning, an episode comes out next week. And then the following week, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 3:30 in the morning. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, by far the most download days I've ever seen for all podcasts. So I'm putting those days, and I'm going to just try and maximize and get it elevated into New and Noteworthy as much to get exposure to new people. So I've never done that before in this way. So it's kind of an experiment that I'm setting up, but I think from what I've learned that it's going to be the best. And I'm doing no promotion to it until Monday. But when the next episodes drop starting Monday, that's when I'll actually promote it to my email list and tell everybody about it and hopefully get it sort of boosted up.
And you'll start mentioning it on new shows, right? Like, hey, if this is your first time and you want to know where to start, go.
Yes, that's going to be a very, very active part. And like most of my email sequences, like for when you download a different lead magnet or sort of the introduction email, it's usually like pulling different parts. Now it's going to be literally like, here's the 10. You can subscribe right here and get them to your phone. And then here's the page about it. So interestingly, though, 6 of the 10 episodes that made it on, I found out the other day, were actually originally sponsored by FreshBooks. So I actually cut out FreshBooks' ads originally and put in new FreshBooks ads. But I mean, the original episodes still stay on my page, and the top 10 page I'm creating is literally just like one or two short sentences, like kind of why I chose this episode, and then it originally appears as, and I link to it, so you can go get the actual full show notes and everything and listen to it there as well. So
I love this strategy. We're in kind of the planning stage of doing one of these for Rainmaker FM too. I mean, when you already have an archive, it's such a great way to do exactly what you're talking about doing. Give people a way to orient themselves when they come to your show, new when you've been around for a while, and plus to use it for more promotion in iTunes, to get a new feed, to be able to get into new and noteworthy again. We could geek out about this all day. It's dawning on me that we may want to do, not only an episode or two on the Showrunner about this, but maybe even a free course on this, for kind of next level folks who are at that stage where they have 50 episodes, 100 episodes, and they're looking for something to do with their archive. This is a really smart strategy. Let me ask you one more question. You talk about, going back through, switching out the ads, all of that. I'm assuming that you have all of the original interview recordings that you did. You have those saved somewhere, correct? Like the original audio? Do you actually have?
My editor had them all. I've never asked him to have them. I could have used the MP3s if I had to, because it wouldn't change the quality, because I would just be cutting stuff and adding new stuff in. I'm not like reprocessing anything. All I really wanted to do was cut out the station ID at the beginning, cut out the mid-roll, and if there was a pre-roll, and put in a new mid-roll. That was it.
And I guess there's no music underneath the station ID, and you don't have music underneath your ad, do you?
No.
So that makes it easy, because otherwise you kind of want to have project files saved so you could swap stuff in and out.
And we actually do have project files for everything. I can't believe he's actually been keeping it for that long, my editor.
That's great.
But every episode that's on the top 10, he edited it. And he was just like, oh, this will be easy. I have all the files still. I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like,
nice.
Yeah, of course I do. He's like, I'll just swap out. And so he did it, just did one quickly. He's like, is this what you have in mind? And so, yeah, it's cool. So that's totally what we're doing. And I'm swapping out the ads. And then to make it sort of more beneficial to my sponsor, we came up with a top 10. So FreshBooks is sponsoring me, and we came up with an idea for a top 10 reason. They did a top 10 small business hacks by FreshBooks. And so episode 1 goes with tip 1. Episode 2 goes with tip 2. To kind of thematically make it work. It's pretty cool. But there's really, besides getting a page put up and recording the 10 spots, there's not much for me to do throughout it, which is really cool. And the money I got paid is more than I got paid originally for the spots. Which is cool too, because they get the whole package deal now. I will be putting together a post in the Facebook group. I'm just waiting till I was actually live on iTunes, and now once the top 10 page is up in a few days, just so people can actually see what it's doing. It's not just me explaining it.
That's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. Very cool, very cool. All right, well, let's dive into, we have a question submitted that we want to get to. If you all have questions, feel free to post them in the chat. We'll be happy to get to them. Nance is here, and Nance asked us a question beforehand, so we always want to get to those questions first. So let me get to this, and it's a great question, and we could probably spend the rest of the time talking about this. So let's dive into this here. Nance's question is, I would really appreciate a discussion of ideas for bringing my people closer to me through the podcast. I am convinced that is a cool thing to do for them, but I have not thought through how to bring them closer to me, what to offer next, or how that will help them get to know me and to understand how I can help them as their coach. People have suggested various things, a question of some sort in the podcast, asking for donations. I would appreciate focusing attention on possible next steps. Thanks, Nance. So this is a big, meaty, wonderful question that'll be fun to sink our teeth into. And, it's interesting because there are several different levels where we can take this question. It really seems like, Nance, you're asking about things that you can do, on your podcast itself, kind of stated calls to action that you can use to get people interacting a little bit, asking some sort of question and getting people to interact. The thought of donations is interesting. I'll start off by saying that I would not start thinking about donations for a long time into your podcast. I mean, unless you already have an established relationship with this audience, like maybe you've been blogging for 4 years and you're really tight with your audience and this podcast is the new thing. And so the audience might be willing to help support it. Otherwise, I would really put in the time first. I mean, and I don't think there's a magic number of episodes, but I can just tell you with the Assembly Call, we didn't start asking for donations until we were 4 seasons into it. And we didn't really start getting any type of significant donations until the 5th season. Now, I'm not saying you have to wait that long, but certainly that's how long it took us to kind of feel comfortable and build that relationship with the audience. And so I think to really generate any type of significant return from asking for donations, just make sure that your relationship with your audience is to the point where you really think that would be reasonable. Only you'll be able to determine that. But my guess is, having a new show, you probably aren't at that place yet. But I think you certainly are at the place. I mean, even just from beginning, you should be thinking about your show in this way. How do you get people to engage more? How do you get people to take that next step with you? And so, Johnny, let's brainstorm on some ideas, talk about some things that we have done. What would be some of your advice to Nance in terms of things that Nance can do?
Email.
Yes.
Email. I don't think you're ever too soon to be thinking about getting people onto an email list, because you're trying to bring people closer to you. And the only way to really bring people closer through a relationship is to make it 2 ways. Right now, it's only you broadcasting. You are the creator. You're broadcasting to them, into their ears, into their car, wherever they are. And that's amazing. And that really helps. But now the conversation needs to be able to go 2 ways. So they need to be able to talk to you. They need to be able to open up. They need to be able to ask you questions. They need to be able to tell you that they like you or that they don't like you or what they like. And so getting people onto that email list really, truly allows that. And that's where you get to take them deeper into a real, true relationship with you, because you can talk, which obviously communication is the essence of all relationships. So we can't have that if it's just you broadcasting to your listener. And I am like donations. I agree with Jared that you can be way too soon for that kind of thing, but you can never be too soon to try and get people onto an email list. Mostly because if you wait until you feel like you're ready to have people on an email list, from that point on, it's going to take months and months of you repeating for them to go join your email list, for them to actually start doing it. So at that point, you're already months behind. So start before you think you're ready, because it's a call to action. And as we've talked about before, call to actions to the point where you feel like you've been saying this so much and that you're just like banging your head against the wall. That's when your listeners are finally like, oh, what? Jared has a newsletter? Oh, wow. This is the first I've heard of this, even though they've heard it like 65 times. It's just how people are. They're not as obviously focused on everything we're saying and doing as much as we want them to be. So I would really, really try and get you to think about, create a landing page as soon as you can. Whatever, if you're on the Rainmaker platform, it's really easy. If you're on WordPress, you should be able to get something up anyways. But get a landing page, just one specific page that's directed at your audience of one, their biggest sort of pain point or what you're going to offer them, and start hitting that. Like just say, whatever it is, the URL, go there, go there, go there, go there. Because that's where you need people to be. That's where you'll get people who will literally join your email list and just, it's like they don't even want to necessarily be on the email list. They just want that contact to you. And you've said it so many times that they'll just be like, John, I've been listening to your show for the last 4 weeks and I've listened to this episode, this episode, this episode, this episode. When you get those, and then all of a sudden you can reply back and be like, wow, that's so very cool. What did you like about this? What didn't? All these kinds of things. Now you literally are having a conversation. Now that's where relationships start. But it can't start before there. So get a landing page and get a decent URL that's easy enough to say and people could remember, and then just start promoting it via the call to action at the beginning and end of your show every single episode. And when those people get on that list, and when they do reply to you or say something to you, always, always, always be there to reply. and have that conversation with them.
Yeah, and this, this comes back to exactly how Nance phrased the question, which is bring them closer to me that will help them get to know me and to understand how I can help them as their coach. Well, the number one way that you can get people to understand how you can help them as their coach is to help them. That is absolutely the best way. And certainly you're helping them with the podcast. That's the big goal of the podcast. But now if this is your goal, you can work this into your call to action. And I like what Johnny said there about starting to build your email list even before you think you're ready, because we've all seen these great lead magnets and people have these incredible funnels set up, and man, they have a free course over there, and like people are doing all this great stuff with their email. And it's really important not to get frustrated or discouraged that you're not at that point yet. And just to get something out there. And I know we talk about you want to give people more in your email than just a reminder about that week's new episode, but doing that is better than doing nothing. And here's the other thing. If you are feeling a little bit insecure that you don't have a lot to offer for the email, well, again, it goes back to Nance, the reason why you asked this question and putting that into your call to action. So let people know, hey, to engage more, sign up for the email list, go to, xyz.com, get on the email list. You will get a notification every week when a new episode comes out. But more importantly, if you reply to those emails on a weekly basis that come into your inbox, I'll see it and I'll reply back. And it's the best way for you to take the next step with this show, to ask me any individual questions that you might have, because that way we can engage in our inboxes. It makes it easier for both of us. Go to xyz.com, sign up. So you put that into your call to action, and it gives people that extra incentive to reach out, which is exactly what you want to do, because now that person reaches out and they're either reaching out to give you kudos, which is nice, and you can thank them back and start up a conversation, or they're going to ask you a question. And if they ask you a question, if they need help, boom, now you have your opportunity to show them exactly the kind of value that you would provide for coaching. So it works out really well. And so that's, I think that right there is the absolute number one thing that you can do, because not only will it achieve that goal of displaying for people how you can help them as a coach, but you're also building up your audience, and you're building up that audience asset of the email list at the same time, which is extremely important.
Yeah, and I think it's also extremely important to really hit it home. Like you said at the beginning, that don't get overwhelmed by people's fancy lead magnets and funnels and all that. As awesome as that stuff is, it's completely unnecessary when starting.
Right.
100%. Things will be better, but you get to that 80% point by just taking people's email. Right. Literally for the first, I think, 11 months of my show, all you could do was join, and you would get one welcome email that literally takes 5 minutes to write. It was like, hey, thanks for joining. I'm so glad that you want to be here. I'll be writing you on Sunday. Hit reply if you want to say something to me. Literally that. It's so personal, and just it doesn't need to be like you see from big companies and stuff, because you are a person doing consulting to other people. People just want it to be like that. If something happens, there's 1 week comes and you don't have something to write, you can literally write to your people on your email list that you don't have something to say to them right now, and you don't want to waste their time, so you're not saying stuff. You get the most responses to those kinds of emails, the ones that seem like, because people just be like, oh my God, I love that you actually have these problems too, these human problems that apparently you shouldn't have. So don't overthink it. Just get people on there, write one simple welcome email, just literally saying, hey, thanks for joining. And then from there, just start writing some emails once in a while. But that is the way. And it's really just, I think, getting started doing it, but don't wait, because you will regret waiting, because it does take a while for this process for people to learn to go and get onto that list.
One of the reasons why the Showrunner community is so great is because we do have some folks here chiming in with some ideas of their own. Rodrigo and Brent are here, so we're going to get to that in just 1 second. I do want to add one other idea that Nance can do. If you're talking about ideas in the podcast to get more engagement that are kind of along these same lines, is you could allow people to submit questions for your show. And you could even set up something like with SpeakPipe. I believe this is what Brian does or did for Unemployable, where people can actually speak their question to you. Like they can send it to you as an audio file, and you could add that to your show as a little Q&A. And maybe you put this at the end, like, here's today's listener question, blah, blah, blah. You play the question and then you answer it. Again, this absolutely shows for people what the benefits of your coaching would be, because that's what coaching is in a lot of ways, is a question and an answer and adding insight to someone else's situation. And this allows you to do that. So people can benefit by submitting their specific question and getting it answered on your show, or they can benefit simply by listening and seeing how you answer other people's questions. So I think, it's nice to have both of those avenues open. Especially if coaching is really where you want to go. For instance, the Art of Charm, they do this really well, where they have a show every Friday that is just Q&A, and listeners submit questions and they answer them. And then they have their interview shows the rest of the week. But, they're all based, that's what they're selling, is coaching. And it's a great way. You can actually hear how he answers questions. And there's a lot of times I'll be listening to him, I was like, oh, that's a great answer. And I'm not really in their market to buy something like that, but it gets me a little bit closer to thinking about it. And I'm sure for people who are, that kind of thing can be really persuasive to kind of pushing them over the edge. So, some people don't want to ask their questions publicly and they'd rather do it via email. So you do that first, because that'll also help you build that audience asset. But then you can add this other part, because that gives you new content for your podcast and another way to actually engage with people inside of the podcast audio. And so for what your stated goals are, and I think where you are in your show currently, just in terms of the timeline, I think those are probably the two best immediate things that you can do. But we can spend some more time brainstorming, as Nance's show evolves, and for other folks who have shows at different stages, some other things that you can do too. And I know that we've got some good ideas here. Like Brent says, Nance could ask a few current clients to comment about how Nance's coaching has helped them, and then showcase the testimonials, which is a great idea. Rodriguez says, how about featuring your customers in your podcast? If you find some really great happening in a business, why not share that with other customers? It's free advertising for them, puts you closer to your audience. Just an idea, brainstorming on the fly here. But that's good brainstorming. I mean, that would be a third way to showcase, the coaching that you can do. Which is put your customers on there, use them as testimonials, as case studies. So it's not necessarily saying like, hey, look at me, I'm so awesome, but it's just sharing a story. It's like, here, this happened, here was my role in it. And you're just presenting the facts, presenting a story, letting people draw their own conclusions, but the conclusion is pretty clear.
Yeah. Another total this is a tactic, not a strategy, I don't think. But something I've been doing the last 6 months that's really, I guess it's working, but I've been giving away books, which just like literally it started by accident. Somebody mentioned a book twice on the show, like during the one conversation. I was like, I love that book too. I was like, screw it. The next 5 people who email me, John at Hack the Entrepreneur, I'll send them 5 copies. I ended up sending, I think, 18 copies to people because like the next day, well, it was published a week later and I'd forgotten about it. All of a sudden these emails, I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh yeah, I totally forgot I said that. But now I've started actually doing that like once a month or once every 2 months. It just like a book comes up and I'll be like, next 5 people. And all it's doing really is it's just opening up to people. Like I don't put those people onto an email list. I don't now start giving them my newsletter. That's not what it's for. It's literally just to have that conversation, right? It's been a while since I've done like a rant on just like being human, and don't worry about them being on your list. Don't worry about what you can get from them. Just have that conversation and see where it goes and see how you can help these people. These books truly, truly will help people. I'm assuming because they've helped me. And so if you don't have this book, I want to give it to you. Unfortunately, I can only give it to so many people, but just drop me an email and I will do it. I think, and not that it's like training people to take action on what you say, but I think it kind of also does. And it kind of makes people want to pay attention to what's John saying? Like it's not just, oh, whatever. Because it's two-way. It's not just, I don't want to just be taking it. So it's something I've been doing and it's been quite successful. I get emails from people asking if I can give away this book next. It's pretty shocking. It kind of took on its own life. And I've seen other people giving away things on their show saying, if you join my newsletter, I give away this every week, like some book or something or some free part of my consulting or something, right? So you can do giveaways to get people and incentivize them to take the action that you want, and then treat them really good once they're there, and you'll be golden. Helps to develop your coaching skills. Yeah, exactly. Totally.
I like that idea with the books.
It gets expensive. But
yeah, well, and that's the other thing, is it does get expensive. You know, with Primality for a while, when I had that podcast going, and even with the site, you know, I was, you know, people who requested wristbands, I was mailing them wristbands and writing them handwritten notes for everybody who got on the email list. And it was awesome. And it's one of those things, like, in an ideal world, if I had 30 hours in a day, I would love to do it. But it became one of those things where just the cost of the time and then the actual cost of like shipping and you know, supplying the wristbands, it kind of outweighed the benefit of them just being on the email list. And at that time, you know, I haven't put enough into that site to where there's a great funnel and they go from an email list to a course or anything. Like, there wasn't really anything beyond the email list. And it came to this weird thing where I started resenting when people would sign up because it would be another to-do list item, which is really dumb. Like, and so you don't want that, because it started with great intentions. And when I would actually sit down and do it, I really loved doing it. But, you know, there are the realities of life and scarce resources. And so you do want to be sure that whatever you are offering to do, you're going to do, and that it's something, it doesn't have to be something that will scale, but it needs to be something that, if it gets a little bit out of hand for a short time or a little bit beyond maybe what you expect, you can handle, but it doesn't, you know, totally overwhelm you. That, for me, kind of overwhelmed me. You know, with the assembly call, something that we do is for, you know, we don't, you know, when people get on the email list, there's a normal autoresponder, but people who donate, I always send them a handwritten thank you note, and we have little assembly call laptop stickers. And that's totally fine, because these people are donating $50, you know, $100, whatever it is. And it's not all the time, you know, so at most there's maybe 2 or 3 of them a week during the season. And that's, you know, easy to budget out, you know, the time for. I'm really excited about doing it. And those are people who are already really engaged. Now they get the thank you note, they're even more engaged. So, you know, and that's the thing with the books. You know, the book is a great thing, but if you start over promising it, you know, now it may get a little bit too expensive. It's a time constraint. And you can end up in this weird situation where it's like, now you don't want people engaging in this thing that you offered to get them to engage. And so you want to be careful about that. Just kind of think it through a little bit beforehand. And don't be afraid, if something isn't working, to stop it and pivot and change and maybe do something different. So that's just a little word of advice for me for mistakes I've made.
Right. And I randomly say it, and I say I have 5 books to give away. Yeah. So it's like 100% definite. I know this episode comes out next Thursday. Next Thursday, I'm going to get 10 emails. I'll respond to 5 and send them. Yeah. So it's not.
Keep it finite.
Like, I don't want to have to go through everybody that subscribes to my like newsletter today in like all the different ways and like, oh, say personal thank you or write them a note. Like, I would despise everybody on my newsletter at this point.
I know, and that's the thing. Like, and that's what I did, and I started it with great intentions, and I really liked it at first. But if the goal is to really grow and build an audience, now you actually hurt yourself because you're investing all of this time doing this thing for one person, which is great. But would you rather have more time to put out another episode for 1,000 people as opposed to, you know? So it's a balancing act, and that's and look, with a podcast, it is a balancing act with that type of engagement, because you do want to go one-on-one and you do want to go deep at certain times. But you also have to be able to still be creating content for everyone and still be obviously identifying new folks. And so you got to find that balance for it. So, but it's a great topic. I want to go back to this question that Samuel had, because Samuel said, no one replies to my emails, even though my one call to action is to reply to me. Any ideas? So Samuel, I want to ask you, I believe you're still here. I want to ask you for a little bit more context here, because if your email is simply a reminder of the new episode that is out, people probably aren't going to reply to that. Now, you said here that your one call to action is to reply to you. So are you asking for the reply in kind of a standard email like that, or are they specific email newsletters, like unique content written just for the email folks, where kind of like Johnny's Hack the Entrepreneur newsletters, where you're taking one topic, maybe you're sharing a story, and you're asking them a question on it. Because I think if you're doing that and people aren't replying, that may be a bit of a deeper issue. If it is kind of the former, then maybe you need to adjust your email strategy. Samuel's actually calling in. Let's bring him on.
Oh, wow.
I know, isn't that awesome? That's why Black is great. Let's bring him on. Samuel, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks. Good to see you too. To answer your question, it's more so I write something about the podcast episode, or like what's happened in the last week, and like some new things I'm thinking of, and I'll ask questions like can I, like, what kind of content do you want to see next? Here's a list of things I'm thinking of. Which one do you like? Which one are you most interested in? Just simply reply, and we'll start a conversation about it. That's pretty much like the type of questions I ask. It's not
what kind of subject line? What kind of subject line are you using? Is it typically a subject line where it's like the title of an episode?
No, the subject line is like your input's going to make this crazy, something like that. It's like really,
they're being opened. The emails are being read.
The emails are being opened at about 24%.
Okay.
And this isn't like every time. This is, like when I do that 3 times in a row and I don't get any responses, I'm just like, maybe this isn't working. I just feel like my list is just really disengaged.
I wonder, is the email distracting at all? Like you say, it has information about the current episode, and then you ask what they want to see next. I wonder if doing it as a separate email, like its own thing, where you have that subject line that primes them to answer a question. That's why I asked about the subject line. If you wanted to answer a question, posing that subject line as a question is important, because then the people who open it will be in that mindset. And it sounds like you're doing that.
Right.
But I wonder if doing that and then getting right to the point in the email, then those people who open, they're more primed for that kind of an email exchange.
Right.
And maybe getting right to the point will get them there faster.
I think what might be happening is I'm treating it a little bit too much like a newsletter, but I'm writing it as if it's a personal email. So what I mean by treating it too much like a newsletter is like when I write a personal email, I write something very, very simple so they know exactly what it's about, like in the first subject. And then I'm like, I have 3 questions for you. And then I bullet point each question, and I'm expecting them to reply. And this is a personal email, right? With the newsletter, what I do is I'm like, here's a paragraph of information of this update, and here's a paragraph of information about this update, and here's a new episode, and here's my question. I think what's happening is it might be that format. Maybe what I should do is what you suggested is say, hey, new content's out. This is what it means to me. Send it out. Expect no replies. You can give me a reply if you want, but I'm not expecting any replies. And then following that, like a few days later, I could be like, here's what I'm thinking for the next series. Here's what I'm thinking for this. So I do think that might be beneficial because maybe people are just like, oh, this is just an update for the podcast episode I just listened to 2 days ago.
Yep.
I don't know. But it's good to talk it out.
And there's
about it.
What is, and there are some subtle things that can make a difference too. Because, like, let's say with a newsletter or a podcast update email, your subject line might use all caps and be like a headline. And for a more personal email, it can be more of a subject line like you might send a friend, where it's like, lowercase and no punctuation, and it's like real quick, and then you get right to the point, and it's much more casual with your language, from your salutation, like, hey, what's up? Had a couple thoughts, wanted to get your input, and that tone, I think a lot of times can help lead to the action that you want to get to. And it's perfectly acceptable to switch that up. Like we do that with the assembly call all the time. We'll have we have a very specific kind of tone and fat for our news roundup emails. But then if we want to get, questions for an episode, it's real quick, short, to the point, and we'll get a bunch of responses. So switching that up, plus it just it gives people a little bit of something different, which can help break up the, here's that podcast update email again, So I think doing some of those things will help you hopefully get some more engagement from folks.
All right, cool.
What do you think, Johnny? Anything else?
So two things. I would decide which direction. I would take it like either that personal direction, like Jared says, and then I would do a separate email for the information, and let people choose their path. If they want both paths, by all means. But it sounds like you really want engagement and you really want to write personal emails. So have a place for people that if I want those from you, man, I don't want the other stuff. I really don't. I unsubscribe to every email that has this, and this, because I just don't want it. But I want the personal emails from people. I really like that. So I would choose maybe which paths if you want to go both directions. And then I would you could be really bold and send an email out that says, I want you to unsubscribe. Just literally say, there's 32 people on here that are super engaged and I want to go deeper with them and others. If you are no longer into this, please unsubscribe. Otherwise, we're starting fresh and we're going to go in two directions, personal email and these. Select which one you want. It makes people recommit to you and to your relationship. It might make people just like, what? He wants me to unsubscribe? No, I want to stay. And then they're going to start opening your emails. And now it's your job to give them what they want. Don't give them kind of a muddle of both, but let them take that path, whichever one they want, but make them reaffirm that they want to be there right now. It's commitment, and they'll start opening your email. They'll start hitting reply because they just committed to this because they told you they would. That's why they're staying. I've seen this done before, and it works really, really well sometimes. Yes, you're going to get unsubscribers, but they're not opening your emails anyway, so they're not even subscribed, basically. Those extra numbers make you feel good sometimes, but it'll make you feel a lot better if you have 50 people and 40 of them hit reply next time.
And they can actually hurt your delivery rates if they're on your list but not opening your emails and not clicking on your links. So it's good to prune them.
It hurts to send that please unsubscribe email.
Yeah.
But it'll make people like the ultimate thing that you're trying to give them. Just say it. It's like, I need you to want to do this. And if you don't want to do that, then please just unsubscribe, or else I'm going to go through and I'm going to clear out everybody who hasn't opened an email anyways. So you might as well do it. But starting fresh next week on Monday morning, we're doing this. And then they can kind of choose their path from there.
Hey, and it's a very meta strategy, because what is more courageous self-confidence than asking people to unsubscribe from your email list?
You know, so when Johnny was saying that, I was like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. But I'm like, it's exactly bold. It's my brand.
Yeah. You know, and with a brand like yours, I think you can explain it in that way, you know, because that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to be a model for what you're teaching people. And that is exactly doing that.
Right.
So yeah, I love that idea.
Sorry, man.
Very good idea, Jim.
Samuel's never coming back on here again. Now he's just like, oh, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the question, Samuel. All righty. Oh, wait. Okay.
Where are you guys?
So that was good stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
And Jason had a good comment up here. Where are you putting the CTA? At the bottom, give it more visual prominence higher up. That is a great rule of thumb. So if people are not engaging with your calls to action, that is the other thing to think about, is where is your call to action? Because it may just be that people aren't finding out about it. You know, if you save your call to action always for the end, well, most people aren't listening all the way to the end of your podcast, and most people aren't getting all the way to the end of your email. So the majority of people may not even be seeing it. So that is one way. Just bump it up to the beginning. You know, if no one's subscribing to your email list and all you're doing is putting it at the end, we may want to think about doing this for the showrunner, actually, now as I talk about this. Put your call to action for the email list at the beginning. If, as Samuel was talking about, if you have a call to action requesting someone to reply and it's all the way at the end, try making it a shorter email and making it the only call to action, or putting that part up at the top, something like that. That can help out a lot too. Sometimes we forget about that and we judge the call to action as being wrong or the list as being wrong, when really, you know, we just didn't get it in front of enough people because they had dropped off by the time they got to it.
Yeah, especially with email. I was reading Brian Clark's Unemployable email yesterday, and his has that blurb at the beginning that's like personal, and then it goes into the sections. And if you would have reversed that, it would be kind of like straight into like the formulaic stuff and then personal at the bottom. I don't think would have the same impact. So that's a great point, Jason.
Have you ever thought about doing a curated email newsletter for Hack the Entrepreneur? Because your email newsletters have been very, they're like personal emails. Like if you could send a personal email to every one of your subscribers, that's what your emails have always been like. Do you plan on continuing like that? Do you have any plans to expand what you're doing with your email?
Well, for the few people that might have noticed, I took 3 weeks off unexpectedly. I did notice that. Yeah, I know. I started getting emails from people about it. So I see that people did notice. I don't know what happened. Mentally, I was going through some stuff, and then I just blocked. So I just didn't write. Curation, though, I don't feel that it's my thing. I don't spend enough time, I don't think, going up and reading things and consuming stuff as much anymore. And I think I would have to actively do that. I've explained, I know some people that are just really good at, they'll always be sending me links to new articles they found in videos, and they're great with the social and finding that kind of stuff. I think those people, it's so in you to curate. You should have a curation newsletter because you would kill it. And so it's just one of I can write and I can speak. And so I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. And I think it would be a struggle for me to curate. I do really want to work on some new stuff for my newsletter that takes it out of just a personal email, but I'm not sure what that is. And I honestly don't think we're all good at everything. I don't think we should all try and do everything that's popular and good for certain people's businesses. And curation, I really don't think it's my thing. I'd have to hire somebody to find the stuff for me. And then I could look at it, and then I could write a personal thing about it. But I think it would just be, I don't think it would be genuine. I don't think it would fit me as well. And it would be kind of incongruent with not what I'm trying to do, but just it feels like it would be a struggle. Me sitting down with a coffee, man, and writing that newsletter on Sundays usually is one of my highlights of my week. It just feels so good. And then I get a bunch of responses. I get to talk to people, and it's kind of this is awesome. It's going nowhere. There's no direction for it. There's no overall big game plan for it, but it seems to be working. And it seems to be doing something, you know what I mean? But it involves, it's not scalable. You're right. I literally have to sit down on Sunday, wherever I am, and write that thing. I mean, I could write it earlier, I guess, but I've only done that once. So I don't know. I think curation's really, really cool. I love that people do it because I like reading them, but I think I'd be terrible at it.
See, I think the kind of the mental process that you just described is really important, because there are so many different tactics and strategies, and we see all these things out there, but we have to have a way as a showrunner to be able to think about these things and evaluate them and decide if we want to do them. Because curation is great. I mean, the Next Draft newsletter, awesome. The curation that Brian does with Further and Unemployable, awesome. And it's a great benefit for those sites. But that also fits him, and it fits that show, and it fits that audience. And so it checks off all the boxes that you need to add something. But like you just said, it wouldn't fit you and what you do, and it wouldn't be genuine. And that is why those emails work that you send. And that's why, even though there isn't a big plan, it still fits into your overall plan, because it helps you develop that genuine connection with these people you're trying to connect with. And that's really important. Is we can get lost in just all thinking we need to do this and do that and do this. And yeah, we need to do new things, but it's really important to pick the things that are really going to be genuine for you. It's like with the assembly call newsletters. It is a pain in the neck on games that start at 8 o'clock at night. So our show doesn't start till 10. It doesn't get over till 11, to be up until midnight, 1 o'clock, writing those post-game emails. But I love it. It is the highlight of my week. Definitely not scalable, but that's why now we're trying to find different ways to leverage that content and repurpose it in new ways. But it just fits, and it's this great thing with the audience, and there's always emails the next morning talking about the game. And it's been such a huge part of us developing that relationship with the audience. And again, it's, there's some trial and error in there, and you try new things, and some stuff sticks and some doesn't. But it's so important. And I just really want to stress that each of you as a showrunner, as you get through more episodes, you're going to know what feels right to you, and you're going to get a better understanding of your audience and what feels right for them. really trust that instinct and make sure that you filter any of these new ideas that you have through that. And if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't mean that maybe you don't try it. I mean, you can always try things, but just really, really be careful about, which of these new strategies and tactics you add, and make sure that they do fit you, your show, your audience, and what you're trying to do. Because we can really lose our way and waste time and go down bad roads when we don't do that.
Yeah, it almost goes full circle with your one thing that you do in the morning to kind of make it so you can have the most impact with your work. Something that I'm doing now, just where I default to no. So everything that comes, somebody asks you like, are you going to do that? Are you going to do that? Everything before it used to be like, maybe. Now it's like, no. And then if something kind of pushes me enough, I'll look into it and be like, okay, maybe, and I'll do some more research. But I used to just say yes to a lot of things, and it kind of just like, I should do that now. I should do this. That's what's happening. But it's just not. So Rodrigo, though, Jason, I'll get to your question in a second. Curation, can you explain how it works? Under the impression, it's not a silly question at all, Rodrigo. Curation is, so when we're talking about it, we're talking about Next Draft, Dave Pell, I believe. Next Draft, Brian Clark does two different ones, Unemployable and Unemployable is actually a bit different because he includes his podcast in that. But with Further, his bigger one, Further.net, he doesn't include his own work. So typically curation doesn't include any of your own content, except that like the Next Draft, well, both of them are excellent examples because when you bring in the articles and then you basically write like a short paragraph sort of summarizing in your true voice and bringing your own like personality into sort of what it's about or why they should read it or how it ties into like the theme of your curated newsletter. But absolutely none of the content really in there is typically, I've seen some done where it's like they're masking it and they're doing other people's content and then throwing their own in all the time. And it's kind of like you're not curating anymore. You're really just trying to get us to see your content and putting some other stuff around it. So curation, when it's done properly, Rodrigo, is absolutely other people's articles, podcasts, videos, things, just with your voice briefly explaining it in the message.
Yeah, and I put some examples here over in the chat, all really good examples of it. And, Next Draft is very general, but there are a lot of great niche ones. And like, for example, we do this with the Assembly Call, where every Friday we send out a news roundup. So we just round up all the important news from the week. Now, we always begin it with our most recent episode, and I'll promote that, plus the episode of Podcast on the Brink that I did this week, the other IU podcast that I do. So that stuff goes at the top. And then in between is just all the links. And it's not just like a bulleted list of links. There's typically some type of context provided. And that's what's really important about curation is you're not just providing links, but you're linking the links. You're kind of the conduit from the links to the audience, and you provide the context. So it's why is this important and why should I care? To the point where if all someone does is read the newsletter, they get something out of it, even if they don't click the links. I think that's the key for good curation is that because, and you don't have to write a lot. It can be a sentence. It can be a couple of sentences. Dave Pell has these little headlines that are kind of funny, clever word plays, so they're fun to read there. And then he has a paragraph that provides it. But that's the important part about curation. And it demonstrates your authority for your audience, for sure. It gives them additional value that's coming from you. And the other great thing about curation is it keeps you on top of what's going on in your industry or in your niche. And so it can be a benefit, even if no one looks at it and clicks, it can be a benefit to you for that reason too. But, you can be smart about it. And the other thing that we started doing with the Assembly Call is then at the end of it, we'll have some kind of call to action. So whether it's, a link to a picture of our merchandise that people can purchase or an affiliate link to a book, we've started to add something where we can generate some revenue at the end. So for the people who get all the way down there, there's a call to action, just another way for a little bit of revenue to trickle in.
Yeah.
But there's enough value before that doesn't look like just a gratuitous, affiliate link type thing. So, but that's what's really important is curation. If you've never done it, it will take longer than you think it will to do right. There's no question. It sounds like this easy, simple thing. It's not. And it's really fun the first couple times because it's new, but then it's to do it, whatever your regular schedule is, it gets hard. And I know I've tried on other sites and it hasn't stuck. We figured out kind of the week schedule for the assembly call is something that we can stick with. But to do it right, you really need to invest and do it right. It's not worth doing poorly. So whereas we said with your email newsletter, it's okay to get that started, just giving people the link to your weekly episode, even though it's not perfect. If you're going to do curation, do it well, because otherwise it's not worth the time that you're going to be investing in it. But if you do, then it can really give you some benefits. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. So yeah, those are my thoughts on curation.
Wow. Okay. I totally froze or you froze. I'm not sure.
Hopefully I didn't. Hopefully people heard what I said.
Okay, you totally froze. I was like, did I freeze or is everything else frozen around me?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Okay, good. Jamar said they heard me.
Yeah, no,
Excellent.
That's really smart. And I couldn't even imagine what it takes to do a curated newsletter for time, but yeah, I know just from enough experience doing other things that it's going to take hours to put together every single week. And it's going to be fun the first couple, and then it's going to be just work. So if you love it, go for it. So quickly, Jason asked we were talking about newsletters and the one I write on Sunday. Do you know what you're going to write about before Sunday, or do you just come up with content? When I really sort of get into a flow, so it really ebbs and flows, Jason, like anything. Sometimes I'm just like kind of like overrun with ideas. And so I'll just like mark them down on notes on my phone throughout the week. And from conversations I have for my show, I'll just mark down ideas that will totally just blow into a full thing. But it hasn't been happening lately. That's why I didn't have it for 3 weeks. And literally on Sunday, I grabbed a coffee. I went and put on LCD sound system, actually. And then instantly I was like, got it. And then I went and just sat down and wrote it. And that was it. No like thought about it. No. Then it was just like hammer a bunch of stuff, edit it down, and then send it. So the answer is sometimes I have lots of ideas like anything. And sometimes it's nothing. It's a struggle, but it's literally, I just have to be confident sort of in the process and just sit down with my coffee and then, okay. And I'll just start writing. And oftentimes I write half and then delete it because I come up with a better idea and then start again. So.
Yeah. You know, and something else too that I've been doing both for newsletters and just blog posts is I've stopped relying on myself to have the idea right when I sit down to write. Because what I found is I was having all these ideas listening to podcasts or, on the treadmill or whatever, and I wouldn't do anything with them. And I'd think, oh yeah, that's what I'll write next time. And then I'd sit down to write and I'd forget about it and be like, what the hell was that idea? So a couple of things I've started doing. One, and I do this especially when I'm listening to a podcast, is I'll go in and I use a podcast app on the Android where you can kind of quickly share it via email. And I'll just go in right when I hear something and that idea sparks, and I might pause it just so I don't miss anything, but I just share that with myself via email, jot down a little note for the idea so that it's in my inbox, and then I can process it later. And the other thing I'm doing, if I'm sitting at the computer and it's, for a site that I have on, Rainmaker or something, I'll go in and just create a quick post draft that just has the headline and maybe the link that inspired it. And then when I'm ready to go back and sit down and actually write it, I've got it there, the idea is there, and it's ready to just take off on. And that, especially if you're doing a weekly newsletter, which I've done before, and probably we'll get back into, well, I say I've done before. I do it for the Showrunner and Digital Commerce Institute now. I don't know why those are for work. I don't know why I don't think about those. So I do those on a weekly basis. But it's the same thing. Try to capture those ideas as you go. And because when you're every week, it's like, damn it, this was really easy the first couple of weeks. Now I'm kind of straining to come up with something to do. Don't rely on yourself to do it just when you sit down to write it. Curate those ideas, curate your own ideas through the week, and it'll make it a lot easier. Yeah, Evernote tagging as well. I've tried Evernote, and I'm not great with Evernote, but I know it works for a lot of people. For me, doing it in email just seems, and I know people say that's not the best way to do it, but for me, it's just been the way that's worked out.
I think if it works for you, then it's the best way for you, at least right now. Know that can change, but yeah, if you don't write those ideas down somewhere or do something with them, as much as you say like, oh, I'll totally remember, you never remember. Never like
yeah.
What was that? And then you're like, oh, what was it? It's like, this is not topic. It's funny.
Actually, okay. Let me share this quick tip before we leave, because our time is up here. But this is something Damien shared with me once on an episode of The Lead that he does. And so he said when he has an idea, he's out, like let's say he's mowing the lawn and he has an idea, so he can't just stop and do something with it. Mentally, he tries to connect that idea with something else. So let me give you an example. Like the other day, Heather and I were talking about, we need to flip the mattress because, the one side of the mattress was getting down, whatever. So we needed to flip the mattress. And so this had been going on for a couple of days. She had kept reminding me. Naturally, I had continued to forget. And so she reminded me one more time. I was like, okay, I have to remember this tomorrow morning. All right, flip mattress, brush my teeth, And so I tried to connect the idea of flipping the mattress to brushing my teeth. And then the next morning when I brushed my teeth, I remembered flipping the mattress because I had been really intentional about connecting it to this other idea that I knew I would remember. And that reminded me of this other thing that I otherwise would forget. It was really interesting and it worked. So anyway, that's another strategy to try.
Yeah, well, watch it next time you brush your teeth, though, you run in and flip the mattress.
Yeah. Why do you keep flipping the mattress every morning?
How many times a day you're flipping the mattress?
Yeah.
I can't disconnect it. Watch out, man. Yeah, Jarmar, the bath markers, they sell bath markers, they're like idea markers or something they call them, just for showers. Because showers, I think it's the one time we put down our devices and get away from computers and stop thinking, and so ideas come to us. So that's a great use for it, because I've actually reached out and tried to find my phone and tried to put notes down. I've been admitting way too many things today.
Hey, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. All right, everybody. I have to go prepare for a Q&A inside of Digital Commerce Academy. And then you and I have a recording session after that. That'll be fun. All righty, y'all. Thanks, guys. Thank you for being here. We will talk to you in a couple of weeks on the next Showrunner Huddle Q&A. See you, everybody.